Hello, my friends. Here I am again, Pedro Candeias, the founder of Karate Science Academy. Well, today I bring you a new theme that breaks completely with the last five classes that I gave here in Karate Science Academy's YouTube. We are going to talk about the training priorities for the karate kids from 5 to 10 years old. Okay, we know that the great majority of dojos all around the world are plenty of kids. Okay, most of the students in our dojos are kids, are teenagers. So it's important that we start talking about the right methodology to work with them. Okay, so let's go to um, this theme where I want you to really think about what type of training are you giving to your kids, especially from 5 to 10. That's the age I'm going to talk about today. And I want you to reflect about if you can improve, okay, some things in your training, in your classes, so your kids from these very early ages are more motivated and have more results, and you as a karate coach becomes even more motivated and energized to teach these ages. Okay, so let's start analyzing, okay, very briefly, this chart, this table, about the youth physical development model. Okay, that is by far the best evidence-based model you can use. Okay, as a reference to what the priorities are for your kids, teenagers, and even adult karatekas. Okay, but as the theme of this class, this specific class, is from from 5 to 10 years old, we are going to focus on that. Okay, this presentation I'm giving you, okay, is I took it from an online class I gave for 3 hours, okay, in an online summit I gave in I participated in Portugal with more than 100 karate coaches that watched this class, and it was all dedicated to know how to work in terms of physical literacy, the priorities of the karatekas from up to 10 years old. Okay, so I'm not going to analyze the entire table, okay, because it's not the goal of this class, but we have here the chronological age, okay, the age periods, the growth rate, the maturational status, the training adaptation, but we are going to focus here from 5 to 10, okay, and this chart shows us the priorities we must have on each age. And from 5 to 10, we have mobility, okay, flexibility, agility, speed, power, strength, endurance. Everything makes part of the priorities for these ages. The size of the lettering demonstrates the importance, okay, that each physical quality has in to each one of the ages identified here. Mobility is smaller, not because, and resist and endurance too, not because it's less important, but this model is made for the generic sports training, for the generic physical development of children and youth also. And so mobility, flexibility, endurance are always specific to the sport itself, okay? to the modality, to the discipline. So we can, in karate, for example, flexibility, we can put it, we could put it in the with the same size of agility, speed, and power, for example. Okay, and but here in this chart, because it is a generical chart, it's smaller. Okay, but let's focus here in the fundamental motor skills and the sport specific skills. Okay, the fundamental motor skills, we are going to see it in a while. Okay, deeply. Okay, more deeper. Okay, and the sport specific skills too, but we can identify that from 5 to 7 we must give a higher percentage of the training sessions to fundamental motor skills, and from 8 to 10 we should prioritize the sport specific skills. In other words, what really need in kata, kumite, and with fundamental motor skills we should work that skills as based on jumping, kicking, throwing, grabbing, balancing. Okay, always with the goal of improving the foundations of our little karatekas, so they can acquire, okay, easily what we need in kumite or kata in the following years. Okay, so to until up to the 10 years old, there is no difference between boys and girls. Okay, as you can see, there are some identified difference from 11 years old, because the biological the biologic maturation of girls is occurs earlier. Okay, so from 11 years old, um, uh, we have some differences, but up to 10 years old, 11 years old, we must see our karatekas, our karate boys and girls in the same way. Okay, we shouldn't make any difference in their training, despite we know that because girls tend to be less stimulated to physical activity, because their playing, okay, tends to be more sedentary. Okay, and boys, if we go to a school at these ages, we clearly see boys running, playing football, all of that, and girls tend to be a little more quiet on their plays. Okay, but when we have a girl that has the same stimulation, the same stimulus for physical activity as boys, we can see that the differences are inexistent. Okay, so up to 10, 11 years old, we must give exactly the same train to boys and girls. Don't forget that. Okay, so first let's explore a little bit more the fundamental motor skills and their importance to our little karatekas. Fundamental motor skills are like we're talking about physical literacy. Okay, fundamental motor skills are related to those generic um, skills as jumping, running, grabbing, throwing, balancing, all of that. Okay, and they are like the alphabet that allows us to write words, to write more complex texts. Um, it's like the numbers we have to learn, okay, in order to one day be able to make more complex mathematical calculations. For example, I can't just take a kid and try to teach him or her a more complex mathematical calculation if they are not prepared. They don't know the numbers. They don't know a simple uh, mm, they don't know how to multiply, okay, two and two, okay. So there is impossible to get, or I don't know, I don't like the word impossible, but it's very hard to take someone to make a complex to skill without the foundations, okay. So the physical literacy in karate is exactly the same thing. When I want my little karatekas one day to perform an amazing Shatanyara Kushanko, an amazing Unsu, an amazing Super Impei, I have I first have to develop their fundamental motor skills, their letters, their numbers. Okay, so this very important that they know how to make a jump forward, to the side, backwards. Okay, for example, I have to develop their executional memory. Okay. Um, I have to develop their ability to move to every side, to make rotations, to have a proper balance when they move their head fast. All these are fundamental motor skills that will be very, very important for karate. And if we develop them in the early stage with the right methodology, they will learn a Shatanyara Kushanko, for example, or they will be able to fight with very advanced techniques and options, and they will get there easier, quicker, okay, with more success. Their potential to grow will be much higher, okay. So we can't really abandon, deny this type of work, okay. For example, when we talk about physical literacy, it's very important that we take into account the karate prerequisites. In other words, I need to know, I need to identify. Okay, let's suppose that you have a karate school, a karate dojo that sees competition as an important part of training. For example, it's a goal to have champions, to have national champions, to have regional champions, to have athletes in the national teams, for example, to have an European champion, an Asian champion, a world champion. It doesn't matter, okay? You must first identify which skills will they have to develop so they can be the best kumite or kata athlete possible, okay. And from there you are going to dissect, okay, and and you must identify which prerequisites, which foundations you have to develop in your little karatekas. So one day, when they must perform an amazing advanced kata, or they must perform an amazing fighting skills, okay, they can get there. They are able to get there. They are motivated to get there. They are self-confident that they will be able to make all those complex and advanced things with success, okay. We don't just grab some generic motor skills and get them and mix them in a class without knowing where we want to go, where we want to to reach, okay. Looking to kata, kumite, and kihon, okay. I don't just grab an exercise I see on YouTube that can be very useful to basketball, but I must make a critical analysis if that's useful for one day. They're able to make a good maigeri, a good mawashigeri, a good stance, a good transition between stance in a kata. Okay, And that's it. Don't just be a motricity coach. Okay, we are karate coaches, we are karate senseis, we are not just a physical education teacher that don't, that his role or her role is really develop the general motricity of a kid. We must have that goal too, because as many tools, the many tools we give to our little karatekas, more they can achieve in the future. But we are karate teachers also, and we must look to what is needed to achieve high levels in karate. Let's imagine you're not a competition coach, for example. You don't really want to have nothing to do, okay, in sports karate, but you want to be proud of your future black belts, for example. So you are going to look to the first dan exam program, for example, and see what they must um, do in that level in 10 in 15 years from here, and you start to develop exercises inside the physical literacy, the fundamental motor skills, and that will help your students to get to the black belt in very good form, okay, with amazing skills, okay, regardless of being athletes or not. Okay, so let's talk about now the specific sports skills. The specific sports skills is no more than the karate techniques. Okay, the karate techniques, tactics, specific kata movements, specific kumite movements, and with time, the fundamental motor skills that between 5 and 10 years and 7 years old are the great are the big priority for your classes. But from 8 years, okay, you must start prioritizing the sport specific skills, in other words the karate specific skills. For example, kata, while between 5 and 7 years old, okay, or lower, because some of us work with kids with 4 years old, 3 years old sometimes, the we must not focus on teaching an entire kata to our little karatekas. We can grab some parts of kata, because sport specific skills are also make part of the training from 5 to 7, okay, years old. We can't just abandon them, but it's not the priority. So I can grab some little parts of kata and teach them to our kids, just like isolated kihon, or some small parts of kata, just our upper limbs, for example, or just our lower limbs, or we just grab a situation where they have to coordinate the upper limb with the lower limb with a simple displacement, for example. Um, but the focus must not be in teaching the whole kata. Okay, from 8 years old, okay, you start to make a priority to teach them the basic kata, the old kata, okay? But let's suppose that you worked well the several parts of kata in 30% of your class in the fundamental movement skills between 5 to 7 years old. When you want to teach, okay, the kata itself as a whole, they will be able to memorize it much easier, okay, and they will feel, they will experience more success, they will become more confident with more self-esteem, and that's very important to the development of the personality of our students. Okay, um, I'm thinking about another example from this. Let's suppose, for example, I'm going to show you three short videos that I included in that 3 hour class I gave in Portugal in July. So you can see in a practical environment what I'm talking about. But let's suppose you want you want your little karatecas to have a great maigeri, for example. Okay, simple technique. While in the 8 to 10 years old, you will prioritize the maigeri itself. In the fundament, be aware of that. I'm talking about reference ages. But if you have a new class with 8, 9, 10 years old that are starting right now, the fundamental movement skills will be fundamental, okay, vital. So in the first phase of those classes, you should prioritize, despite the age, the fundamental movement skills, because they will be more motivating to your students, will retain them more, and they will have more results in the long term. Okay, and then progressively you start putting more time dedicated to the karate specific skills. Okay, but let's suppose, let's take these reference values, and let's suppose you want your 10 years old kid to have a great maigeri. Okay, when he or her as 6 years old, for example, you start putting exercise that will stimulate the raise of the knee. Okay, the knee raise before the kick itself, and you have several ways of stimulating that knee raise. I'm going to show you some examples without being too pushy. Okay, we just having your little kids to make 100 maigeris so the knee learns how to go up. Okay, when you progress to the sport specific skills, to karate specific skills, you will then have a better maigeri when you teach the maigeri itself, because the knee raise is already developed. Okay, and they will make it naturally with less effort. Okay, to learn that phase of the movement. Okay, so let's summarize here a little bit the priorities of each age. Okay, we are talking about in this class. We have the initiation foundations stage. Okay, from 5 to 7 years old. The same thing to girls and boys. The priorities are fundamental motor skills, strength, agility, speed, and power. By the youth physical development model, which we could include here flexibility, for example, because it's a very specific and very important physical ability to karate, as we well know. Okay, and then we have the initiation development stage from 8 to 10 years old, the same to girls and boys. The priorities are the same, and we add the specific sports skills, the specific karate skills, and the percentage with athletes, with the karatekas that already come from a regular practice before 8 years old. The specific karate skills become, okay, more relevant than the fundamental motor skills that must be included. Okay, with no doubt, even with teenagers, even with adults, those fundamental motor skills must be present in the warm-up, for example, as some generic exercise for develop, for example, endurance. When we have teenagers or adults starting karate, we can develop a little bit their motor skills with some fundamental motor skills, but in uh, an ideal situation, the specific karate skills become more relevant than fundamental motor skills. Let's suppose that before 8 years old, we dedicate, for example, 60, 70% to fundamental motor skills and 30% for specific karate skills. Between 8 to 10 years old, we inverted. For example, we put 60% for specific karate skills and 40% for fundamental motor skills, for example. Okay, and this relationship will get will evolve, okay, along the development of your karatekas, when they go up, okay, in age, okay. um, of course, you have to put 80%, 90% of specific karate skills and just 10% of fundamental motor skills. Okay, we are training karate and not just doing some kind of fitness where everything is relevant. Okay, so I'm going to, before showing you some videos as an example. Okay, don't forget this: the training quality between 5 and 10 years old is way more important than training quantity. Okay, whenever quantity will negatively affect the quality of what your karatekas are doing, you must stop it. Okay, let's imagine you let's take a fundamental movement, a fundamental motor skill as jumping. Okay, you set a sequence with 4 mini hurdles. I'm going to show you that 4 mini hurdles with a little sequence of jumps. Okay, um, more important than the number of reps, or the number or the amount of time your little karatekas are doing those jumps, is the quality of their jumps. Let's suppose that they make it 3 times, okay, and then they start losing postural control. They start losing dynamic balance. They start losing energy. They start jumping heavier. Okay, it's time to stop and just go to another stimulus, another exercise. Their motivation will be much higher, okay, during the whole class. And the results, when the motivation is high, the results are greater. Okay, we all feel that, regardless of our age, regardless of our training stage in karate, when we are motivated, the results, the productivity of the training is way bigger. Okay, of course we have those exceptions, those kids that you could make the most boring and repetitive training in the world, and they would be still there. They would be motivated. They would stand there for years training like that. Okay, but those are the exceptions. Most kids are not built that way. Okay, and we have to accept it. Most of the times kids are not lazy. We're just not giving them the right methodology to keep them motivated, to develop their self-confidence, their self-esteem, their sense of self-efficacy. Okay, and we must become better coaches so we can motivate the majority of our kids in our karate classes. Of course, we will always have that really lazy kid, that kid that no matter what won't be with a good energy in your class, but that's an exception. Okay, not the rule. So if you are really listening to me, don't go after the exceptions. Okay, don't compare the most of your students with that special kid that will make everything in the top no matter what. Okay, most of the kids are not built like that. Those are the exception, and that they are not better or worse than the others. They just have a different personality. They it may happen that he or her developed faster, okay, in terms of their biologic maturation, for example, and we must have that in our heads, okay? So let's see here 3 videos, okay? It could be more, but let's see 3 videos. Here we have a little karateka that is making, for example, a fundamental motor skill. A little more advanced, okay? More related to karate, because we must be karate teachers, okay? Even in fundamental motor skills, the ability to coordinate the opposite sides, fundamental for karate. We could be here analyzing this exercise for hours, okay? But that's not the goal of this class. Dynamic balance, the trunk rotation, very important for punching, the feet, okay, alignment for Zenkutsu Dashi and other stances we have in karate. Here a little bit more specific, the same pattern, okay, they acquired earlier, and then we put a Zenkutsu, a Gyakuzuki, okay, and the later we put a Zenkutsu Dashi, because they are we are developing their balance. Going backwards, of course, is harder than going forward. Okay, you have to take that into account. For example, another exercise that I was talking about earlier in this class, the knee raise. I put a kid making this exercise and just change the arm movement. Now they rotate the trunk, then they make a gyakuzuki, and the knee is always raising. They perform dozens of repetitions of a very fundamental stage of a maigeri, for example, without being pushing with just 300 maigeris. Okay, this is the magic of kids training karate. If you don't use this kind of methodology, change it, please, because the motivation, the retention of your students, of your little students, will be much higher, and you will love to teach like this, and the results in the middle and long term will be way bigger in terms of good karate. Okay, and here another example. Okay, with the hands, for example, here to help to strengthen the muscles that put them in a good posture for kata, for example. Don't just make them perform 20 times Pinangodan or Gekiseda each, and always your posture, your trunk, your posture. No, that's not the way our little karate's brain work. Okay, here dynamic balance, some reactive strength. Okay, let's go to another one. For example, let's see. Here, for example, okay, mini hurdles. Yes, developing the ability to move to to different sizes. Okay, developing leg power, reactive strength, developing execution memory. Okay, fundamental to memorize a kata easier. Okay, in terms of motor actions. Here we can build a sequence with 6 jumps, then with 8 jumps, then with 10 jumps, and that will stimulate their executive memory. Okay, so another example, we could explore each one of these videos very deeply. Okay, last video, let's see here. The let me see one thing. I don't remember the name of this movement. I'm sorry. In português, cambalhota. Let's call it a roll, okay? It's easier. This type of movement that we might think it's not, it hasn't any relation with karate. The roll, the front roll, the forward roll, okay, has a big advantage that is a very playful, okay, exercise that every kid loves to do when he knows or her knows how to do it. So it has that advantage. It's a ludic, okay, exercise that children like and have other great advantages for karate. For example, the vestibular system that controls our balance when we move our heads, for example, important in rotations in kata, in kumite, whenever we make this kind of movements. The roll will stimulate in a playful way that vestibular system. You can stimulate the same muscle groups that work in a punch, in a noitsuki, the shoulder, the triceps, when they push the ground to make the roll, for example. Spine mobility, very important for their long-term health. You can develop leg power, leg strength when they come up from the roll. You can add the forward jump, diagonal jump. You can add just I'm going to show you again the several ideas I brought to this class here. Okay, then a jump, working power. Here the same thing diagonally. Now a static balance situation, or in other words, a dynamic balance situation with the roll, and then a static exercise, okay, after the roll. So you can explore this in several ways in the fundamental motor skills between 5 and 10 years old, and with a higher percentage between 5 to 7. Okay, so let's stop. Okay, I have here another. It was supposed to be a short lesson because we're about to close again because of COVID here in Portugal for at least a month. So we are preparing everything, so tomorrow we can give an online answer to our students in our gym, in our karate class, in our dance classes. So we are working on that. It was supposed to be a short class, but I can't just control myself when I start, when I start giving, okay, the knowledge I acquired in the last year. So I hope it was useful, guys. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, to activate the notifications, because most of the classes will be eliminated when I publish a new one, okay, here in YouTube. The links to the Telegram group where I put the PDF with the summary of this class are below in the description. Our Instagram, where we put a lot of content that I think it will be very useful to all of you. So thank you again. See you next week, and keep safe, my friends.